is Valley News Live at 4.
We've been following some breaking national news for you all day involving the American fatalities after 2 explosions in Kabul today. In just a few minutes, President Biden is expected to make his remarks regarding today's devastating news. We will be cutting into that special report for you once it's up. But as we wait, the latest from Afghanistan is at least a dozen U.S. service members were among those killed. 15 more are wounded. The Pentagon also says U.S. forces are prepared for more attacks. Steve Dorsey is at the White House. We want to warn you, some of the images you're about to see in his report are graphic and maybe disturbing.
CBS News has obtained these graphic images of bodies floating in a canal outside of Kabul's international airport after 2 explosions and reports of gunfire. Another video shows a man carrying what appears to be the lifeless body of a child.
2 suicide bombers assessed to have been ISIS fighters detonated in the vicinity of the Abbey Gate at Hamad Karzai International Airport and in the vicinity of the Baron Hotel, which is immediately adjacent. The attack on the Abbey Gate was followed by a number of ISIS gunmen who opened fire on civilians and military forces.
Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby said in a statement, quote, "We can confirm that a number of U.S. service members were killed in today's complex attack at Kabul airport. A number of others are being treated for wounds. We also know that a number of Afghans fell victim to this heinous attack."
President Biden met with his national security team in the Situation Room in the aftermath of the blast. Several planned White House events, including the president's meeting with the Israeli prime minister, were postponed.
But I think our mission remains. We're still committed to flowing people out up until we terminate operations at some point, towards the end of the month.
Lawmakers say U.S. forces should stay until the evacuations are complete.
Leave no one behind enemy lines. No one.
The State Department had issued a warning overnight for Americans to stay away from the airport based on intelligence reports of a credible threat. Steve Dorsey, CBS News, the White House.
The Biden administration now says it has evacuated more than 100,000 people from Afghanistan since the end of July. CBS News confirms 2 members of Congress traveling to Kabul were denied permission to land their plane. Again, we're still waiting on President Biden's remarks. We'll take that special report when it's available. Meanwhile, North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum released a statement saying, in part, the Biden administration needs to demonstrate leadership and do more to bring U.S. citizens home quickly and help those Afghans who have been our allies in the war on terror. To the forecast, Nathan promised rain, and he certainly delivered. He joins us with the latest. Nathan.
Yeah, thanks, Stacey. First alert weather day for today definitely did deliver with some gusty winds, some wind damage, and some severe storms in our southern neighborhoods. Some rainfall for quite a few of us, though, for this morning was a nice little bit to wake up to for those of us in the north, where we were clear from those severe storms earlier earlier this morning, I should say. Here's a photo we got. This from the Wolverton area, some wind damage, some branches down. Debbie shared this one with us of from the damage from some of those storms we saw this morning. And this one, some whitecaps on Lake Ida. Rick Julian shared this with the wind so strong on the lake there that they're seeing some whitecaps there. So definitely a windy one for those storms this morning. And we have some rain reports so far. This is 1.8 inches measured there in Cullum. Verona, 1¼ inches so far. The edge of the area around an inch, just around an inch also for our friends in Lemoore. Horace recently reported 0.6 inches. Of course, still waiting for some more rainfall reports to come in as we're still seeing a few showers making their way through our southern neighborhoods. There was a severe storm earlier around the Sisseton area. Most of the activity, though, does look to be south of I-94, though I did see a few raindrops here in the Fargo area about an hour or so ago. So watching this very carefully, not expecting much in the way of severe weather from these anymore. These are not moving into an environment with good criteria for those severe storms. But of course, Stacey, coming up in a few minutes, we'll talk about our next chance of severe storms, which comes for this weekend. And then again, that's just coming up a little bit later on in the newscast.
All right. Thanks, Nathan. A building is destroyed from a major fire along Miles Avenue Southeast, just outside of Bemidji. The fire department says they responded to the house fire around 8:30 last night. 32 firefighters spent 2.5 hours with 11 pieces of equipment putting this fire out. The structure and contents are a total loss. The fire continues to be under investigation. The Greenwood fire in northeastern Minnesota now covers nearly 22,000 acres. The power and unpredictability of a wildfire is now painfully clear to a handful of Minnesotans who've lost homes and cabins. Emergency officials say at least 12 homes and 57 outbuildings have been destroyed. Volunteers from the Red Cross set up a 24-hour shelter for people who have been evacuated.
We've got some really dedicated volunteers that are being there for those people that need a place to go. need a hot meal, need to just have a place to stop and get support, whether that be disaster health services support or just emotional support for the stress that they're going through.
The Red Cross is looking for more volunteers to work at shelters locally and during national disaster responses like the flooding in Tennessee or wildfires in California. There's also a need for health services volunteers like nurses or anyone with a medical background. If you want to get involved, head to redcross.org. A fire in downtown Fargo forced the evacuation of an apartment building overnight. Fire crews got the call around midnight about flames on the roof at 110.5 9th Street South. They found the fire had moved from the roof into the wall of the apartment in the second story. Crews spent a few hours on the scene looking for hot spots. No one was hurt, but 2 people are displaced. The cause is under investigation, but that fire does not appear to be suspicious. 2 men have been sentenced for poaching multiple moose south of Dunseith, North Dakota, back in May of last year. 19-year-old Sean Morin Jr. and 20-year-old Jake Charbonneau pleaded guilty to multiple charges after wardens connected them to the death of 5 moose. Wardens say the moose were shot, 2 of which were pregnant. Charbonneau will serve 20 days in jail as well as pay $2,000 in restitution. Morin faces 2 years of supervised probation. His hunting license has been suspended and he must also pay $5,000 in restitution. Capitol police officers injured in the January 6th insurrection are suing former President Donald Trump and his allies over the deadly attack. In a lawsuit filed in federal court, 7 officers say the former president, along with white supremacist and extremist groups, committed acts of domestic terrorism in order to retain power. The suit, which follows similar litigation by Democratic members of Congress, specifically names Roger Stone, the Oath Keepers, and the Proud Boys. Police officers who were at the Capitol on January 6th recently delivered emotional testimony before a congressional committee investigating the attack. Regarding the work of the committee, former President Trump has said he will defend executive privilege and accused the committee of violating its, quote, legal principles. The overuse and misuse of an anti-parasite drug that's being used as a COVID treatment. It comes as new COVID cases continue to surge nationwide. Anthony Pura has the latest from Los Angeles.
The CDC issued a health alert Thursday saying off-label use of the anti-parasite drug ivermectin as a COVID-19 treatment has led to a sharp increase this summer to calls to poison control centers across the country. In Illinois, where hospitals are rapidly filling up with COVID-19 patients, the governor announced a new vaccine mandate.
Vaccines will be required for all P-12 teachers and staff, all higher education personnel, all higher education students.
Cases have hit a record high in Florida, where funeral directors say they are struggling to keep up with demand.
We have a 35 capacity cooler here. It has been full. We're working around the clock.
The CDC says COVID deaths nationwide will likely increase over the next 4 weeks, with an additional 5,000 to 17,000 deaths expected. Hospitalizations in Oregon have also hit a record high. ICU beds are at 93% capacity statewide.
Every day we see just the body boxes roll out one after the other. And then as soon as we clean the room, we get somebody back in there. It's the worst we've ever seen.
And starting in November, unvaccinated Delta employees who are in the company's health care plan will have to pay a $200 monthly surcharge.
All we're looking to do is just take care of our people and continue to push them to make good decisions.
They'll also have to take weekly COVID tests starting next month. Anthony Pura, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Delta's chief health officer says vaccination rates are up 5-fold since yesterday's announcement. Students in West Fargo went back to the classroom today, and with that comes enrollment numbers for the school year. First day enrollment numbers show almost 12,400 students enrolled at West Fargo Public Schools. That's already roughly 750 students more than last year, and that number is only going to grow. Today's number doesn't include kindergartners who start next Tuesday. The official enrollment number will be calculated based on enrollment at the end of September. Some things never change. A look at what they're calling the Great Minnesota Get Back Together is still to come.
And that drought update came out this morning. Some things I want to take note of here in central North Dakota. This is last week's, but look at this week. Some improvement there across central North Dakota, both in northern North Dakota and southern North Dakota. Some more rainfall, though, is in the forecast for the next couple days. We'll break it down for you next.